Hi everybody, Mr. Withers here. Today we're going to talk about multiplying fractions. When we multiply fractions, this is maybe the easiest of our fraction operations in terms of knowing how to do our operation here. Okay, when we multiply fractions together, really all we need to do is multiply straight across. And what I mean by that, let's say I have 2/3 times 3/4. Literally all I do is take top times top, bottom times bottom, multiply straight across my fraction, and I end up with 6/12. Now the trickiest thing is once I get that, I always have to make sure that I simplify. So if I divide both these numbers by 6, I end up with 1/2 as my final answer. Multiplying straight across will always allow us to get our correct answer with multiplying, as long as we know how to simplify at the end. Now, the cool thing about multiplying fractions is we do have a strategy called cross-simplifying. Cross-simplify. And what I mean by that is when we write fractions, we can look across the fraction and simplify before we even do our multiplication. For example, let's say I had 7/12 times 6/14. I can look across my fraction. 12 and 6. Do 12 and 6 have anything in common? Absolutely, I can divide by 6. So if I divide both of these numbers by 6, I end up with 1 and 2. 7 and 14. Do they have anything in common? Yeah, I can divide both of those by 7. And I end up with 1 and 2. Now, multiply straight across. I get 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 1/4. Let's go back and see, just to make sure that we proved ourselves correct here. Sorry about that. 7/12 times 6/14. 7 times 6 is 42. 12 times 14, let me do a little mental math here. 168, I believe. Okay, and I could take both of those numbers divided by 42, believe it or not. 42 divided by 42 is 1. 168 divided by 42 is 4. So eventually I would simplify back down to this 1/4 number. But rather than dealing with 42 over 168 and trying to figure out how to divide those numbers out, it makes a lot more sense to look at the beginning and say, hey, let's just divide across my fractions before I even get started, save myself some work in the long run. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, one more quick example. Let's pretend in this case that we have some mixed numbers. Okay, 2.5 times 3 1/3. Now, we don't deal with mixed numbers a lot in EDM, but if you ever do run across something like this, a great method is to use that check mark. Okay, turn these to improper fractions. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5 halves, times 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10 thirds. I'm going to look to cross simplify. 5 and 3 do not have anything in common. 10 and 2 I can divide by 2. So I have 1 over here and 5 over here. Multiply straight across. 5 times 5 is 25. 1 times 3 is 3. And now all I need to do is simplify. 3 goes into 25 6 times with 1 left over. 6 1/3 would be my final answer to this original problem. And all I really did was use that check mark, then multiply it straight across. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, if you're an EDM, you can go ahead and shut this video off. If you are a pre-algebra student, we're going to do a couple problems with negatives, so go ahead and stick around. All right, EDM, go ahead and do some example problems, some practice problems on your own. Pre-algebra, let's do some negatives. So if we saw a number like -3 1/5 times 5 7/8. Okay, in this case, again, we always want to turn these to improper fractions. I've shown you examples in class before of what happens if we don't. Okay, A, you're going to get the wrong answer, or B, you're going to have to actually do 4 different multiplication problems and add those results together. You're making so much extra work for yourself. So let's just use our checkmark method to start. Okay, 3 times 5 is 15, plus 1 is 16 over 5, that's a negative, times 47 over 8. Now I want to look and see, do I have anything that I know that these numbers have in common? 16 and 8, right? I can divide by 8, so I have 1 there and 2 there. Multiply straight across. 2 times 47 is 94. 5 times 1 is 5. Now, I want to look at this and say, is it a positive or a negative number? I've got a negative sign there and nothing over here, which means I do have a positive 47/8. And remember our fairy tale math, okay? One negative and one positive is always going to be a negative answer. So our answer will be negative. Now we just need to simplify. Okay, so 5 goes into 94 18 times. That gets us to 90 with 4 left over. So 18 and 4/5 is our final answer. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, whenever we multiply or divide, pre-algebra students, use that fairy tale math. Okay, make sure that's in your notes. Know that a positive and a positive or a negative and a negative are always going to get a positive answer. But if we have one of each, we'll always end up with a negative answer. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have questions, never hesitate to ask. Otherwise, let's get after some example problems and do a little bit of practice. All right, good luck.